Here we are. St. Thomas Aquinas, question 10, article 4, in the prima pars of his Summa Theologica. Question 10 has to do with the eternity of God. Article 4 asks whether eternity differs from time. Objection 1. It seems that eternity does not differ from time. For two measures of duration cannot exist together, unless one is part of the other. For instance, 2 days or 2 hours cannot be together. Nevertheless, we may say that a day or an hour are together, considering an hour as part of a day. But eternity and time occur together, each of which imports a certain measure of duration. Since, therefore, eternity is not a part of time, for as much as eternity exceeds time and includes it, it seems that time is a part of eternity and is not a different thing from eternity. Okay. Thomas's reply. Such a reason would be valid, 1, if time and eternity were the same kind of measure, but this is seen not to be the case when we consider those things of which the respective measures are time and eternity. Objection 2. Further, according to the philosopher, in his physics, the now of time remains the same in the whole of time, but the nature of eternity seems to be that it is the same indivisible thing in the whole space of time. Therefore, eternity is the now of time, but the now of time is not substantially different from time. Therefore, eternity is not substantially different from time. Thomas's reply to objection 2. The now of time is the same as regards its subject in the whole course of time, but it differs in aspect. For inasmuch as time corresponds to movement, its now corresponds to what is movable, and the thing movable has the same one subject in all time, but differs in aspect, a being here and there, and such alteration is movement. Likewise, the flow of the now, as alternating in aspect, is time, but eternity remains the same according to both subject and aspect, and hence eternity is not the same as the now of time. Objection 3. Further, as the measure of the first movement is the measure of every movement, as is said in the physics, it thus appears that the measure of the first being is that of every being. But eternity is the measure of the first being, that is, of the divine being. Therefore, eternity is the measure of every being. But the being of things corruptible is measured by time. Therefore, time is either eternity or is a part of eternity. Thomas replies, as eternity is the proper measure of permanent being, so time is the proper measure of movement. And hence, according as any being recedes from permanence of being, and is subject to change, it recedes from eternity, and is subject to time. Therefore, the being of things corruptible, because it is changeable, is not measured by eternity, but by time. For time measures not only things actually changed, but also things changeable. Hence, it not only measures movement, but it also measures repose, which belongs to whatever is naturally movable, but is not actually in motion. On the contrary, eternity is simultaneously whole, but time has a before and an after. Therefore, time and eternity are not the same thing. I answer that it is manifest that time and eternity are not the same. Some have founded this difference on the fact that eternity has neither beginning nor an end, whereas time has a beginning and an end. This, however, makes only a merely accidental and not an absolute difference. Because granted that time always was and always will be, according to the idea of those who think the movement of the heavens goes on forever and ever, there would yet remain a difference between eternity and time, as Boethius says, in his On the Consolation of Philosophy, chapter 5, arising from the fact that eternity is simultaneously whole, which cannot be applied to time, for eternity is the measure of a permanent being, while time is a measure of movement. Supposing, however, that the aforesaid difference be considered on the part of the things measured, and not as regards the measures, then there is some reason for it, inasmuch as that alone is measured by time, which has beginning and end in time. Hence, if the movement of the heavens lasted always, time would not be of its measure as regards the whole of its duration, since the infinite is not measurable, but it would be the measure of that part of its revolution which has beginning and end in time. Another reason for the same can be taken from these measures in themselves, if we consider the end and the beginning as potentialities. Because, granted that time always goes on, yet it is possible to know in time both the beginning and the end, by considering its parts. Thus, we speak of the beginning and the end of a day or of a year, which cannot be applied to eternity, since these differences follow upon the essential and primary differences, namely that eternity is simultaneously whole, but that time is not so. There we have it. That was a difficult one. It's Article 4 of Question 10 in the Prima Pars of St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica. Thanks for tuning in.